Hello, and welcome to our Module 3 group presentation about the Akron Zoological Park. Our group consists of Hannah Nelson, Isabella Guerra, myself, Matt Charlton, and Amanda Gartrell. Looking at our overview and agenda, this presentation will cover the case study of Akron Zoological Park and their goal to increase the park's annual attendance rate. We will review the zoo's figures and costs from 1989 to 1998, along with the predicted annual attendance rate and revenue for 1999 and 2000. A simple linear regression analysis was conducted in order to calculate and display those ratings. Other factors and independent variables that could potentially affect the attendance rate were also considered, ending with a conclusion and recommendation of how the zoo should proceed in order to reach their goal. Hannah worked on the introduction, the prior figures and costs, and with myself on the other factors. Isabella worked on methodology, and along with Amanda, worked on predicted attendance figures, predicted revenues, and the simple linear regression analysis. Isabella also worked on the conclusion, while I researched the real-world context we used as a basis for choosing our model method, and as you can hear, am in charge of recording and video editing. Introduction. The Akron Zoological Park was founded in 1953 and is located in Akron, Ohio. The zoo has an exceptional reputation of being a high-quality park for visitors to spend their leisure time. It has a vast array of animals, birds, and reptiles that are well cared for. The zoo is constantly making improvements on their exhibits, rides, and dining amenities. Unfortunately, during the late 1980s, the decline in the economy caused the zoo to become an independent organization for the city. Due to this adjustment, the zoo must ensure that its sources of income are equal to or exceeding its operating and physical plant costs in order to remain lucrative. This gives the zoo a goal of an annual attendance rate equal to or exceeding 40% of its community. So, our methodology for our project. We want to define the problem, which is the Akron Zoological Park needs predictive figures to determine the viability of the park. We need to develop the model, to require trend of past 10 years in order to determine predictions for the 2 upcoming years. We need to acquire input data, the previous 10-year figure attendance provided by Akron Zoological Park, and then we also need to develop a solution. Used Excel QM trend analysis forecasting method to obtain results and comparisons of forecast accuracy measures such as MAD, MSE, and MAPE. Then we need to test the solution. Our solutions were reviewed for accuracy of context. No problems were observed with our solutions. Further on, we need to analyze the results, which were reviewed with the park, and then finally we had to implement the results. The results from the study were given to the Akron Zoological Park and recommendations were placed. So, the real-world comparison. Similar to our inquiry into how to best predict admittance for the Akron Zoo and to optimize revenue and lower expenses, David R. Perkins forecasted zoo attendance for the North Carolina Zoo and Zoo Atlanta based on how a dependent variable reacted to independent variables like weather and climate. He used a simple linear regression, and this was in 2012. We looked at more directly involved variables compared to Perkins, but felt a similar process and model to the Akron Zoo would help our project. And there's an example of one of the figures that Perkins used in his study that was published in 2012. So, moving into our data. Prior figures and cost. Akron Zoological Park's attendance figures have been on a constant rise since the park became an independent organization. Since 1989, the zoo's attendance rate has nearly tripled from 53,353 to an all-time record high of 133,762 in 1994. From 1994, the attendance rate has shifted to a slight decline with an attendance of 117,874 in 1998. This could be due to the increase in admission fees in 1995 that raised all adult, child, and group tickets by 50 cents. This data was presented by Akron Zoological Park, covering years 1989 to 1999. The variables we will be analyzing during our study include the independent variable in years and the dependent variables, such as the numbers of attendance per year, where 1 equals 1 person, and the admission fees from adult, child, and groups, measured in dollars, where 1 equals $1. Other independent variables that have factors on the dependent variables were ignored in statistical analysis but will be presented later on in the presentation. Simple linear regression analysis. This is the model that we chose to use when analyzing the Akron zoological problem. As shown in our data on screen, the R-squared data can be translated as the coefficient of determination to be later used as analysis. This is that 0.7753222479 number. With the F value highlighted below with the red text showing a low data point, it is then determined that the model is significant and there is a definite correlation between the X and Y variables. With the apparent upward trend of the regression line, it is clear that as the year passed, Akron Zoo's attendance has grown as well. To compute the line, we use the regression equation listed on this slide, helping us to find the trend line for the attendance data. Using trend analysis on Excel QM, we need to better understand this data, so we decided to dive into the MAD, MSE, and MAPE values. The MAD value, or better known as the median absolute deviation, is a measure of variability amongst a set of quantitative data. The MSE value, or the mean squared error, provides a procedure in estimating the unobserved quantities. The MAPE value is known as the mean absolute percentage error and is a statistical measure of how accurate the forecast system is. While the F value does show that model is statistically relevant, the MAD and MSE values do show that there is variability. MAPE shows a resulting 9.86% chance in error in this forecasting. This is understandable in this situation as attendance over the years has variability due to changing weather throughout the year and between the years the changing economy, population of the surrounding areas, and variabilities inside the population. Overall, the forecast for the next couple of years will bring a rough estimate in how many individuals Akron Zoological Park should expect. Finally, to round off our predicted attendance figures, for 1999, we predict 145,189 people, and in 2000, we predict 154,235. This was computed by using the forecasting trend analysis on Excel QM. So, the regression analysis for the revenue. This regression line shown for the revenue data also exhibited an upward trend showing an increase of revenue as years passed. The equation used is listed on the slide and helped us find the trend line for the data given. Moving on to our predicted revenues. As we see with MAD and MSE again, there is obvious variations in the data. As we have seen from the previous data given by Akron, both prices for children and adults has been slowly increasing through the 10-year period. What should be bringing in the majority of the variability is the changing prices of the group rate, as it has been pushed up and lowered inconsistently. Other variability includes the revenue's relationship with attendance over the years. The overall 30% MAPE is understandable due to all of these variations. So, the predicted revenue for 1999 and 2000 are as follows. We also used the forecasting trend analysis on Excel QM, and we predicted that in 1999 predicted revenue would be $360,150.68 cents. Then for 2000, it's $394,897.49 cents. So, moving on to the other factors that heavily influence attendance at a park such as a zoo. One of these is weather. One factor that could highly influence the weather is whether or not it's diminishing or increasing attendance rate depending on the climate. Historically, the weather has played a tremendous role in the zoo's attendance. For example, attendance was down during the month of December in 1995. This was due to the fact that a local record was reached for the coldest temperature and highest snowfall. Unfortunately, weather is extremely unpredictable, therefore this independent variable cannot be forecasted in predicting the annual attendance. Other factors are like new animals, rides, or restaurants. This could include a new berth in the exhibits, new rides, new restaurant amenities, anything. These factors would highly influence the annual attendance rate because it would attract more families, therefore increasing the annual attendance rate. These independent variables could be forecasted if the zoo has them forecasted in their annual business plan. Another factor to consider would be the zoo's advertising strategy. If the zoo created a new way to reach consumers, they could potentially raise their attendance rate. A possible idea would be to design a website for the zoo to generate an online presence. In today's world, everyone has immediate access to the internet. By having an online website, more people would have easy access to the zoo's information, such as park hours, exhibits, special promotions, and group discounts. This new advertising strategy could lead to a large rise in the annual attendance rate and would have little to no cost if created through an online website template. Finally, the last factor to consider when predicting the zoo's attendance rate is the park's operational hours. If the zoo has longer operating hours, then they could potentially increase their attendance. This independent variable could be forecasted if the zoo handed out surveys asking regular attendees what their preferred hours would be. By conducting this research, the zoo could predict how many people would come earlier or later, and if it would impact the current annual attendance. All these factors should highly be considered when forecasting Akron Zoo's annual attendance rate. Thanks for watching. The overall growth of Akron Zoological Park is evident. Regression analysis shows an overall upward trend in both attendance and revenue. We do see variability and a high level of it in both attendance and revenue, as seen from our MAD and MSC values, along with potential high-level error in this calculation. This is to be expected as there are many potential variables that affect these two dependent variables that were not accounted for in a simple regression analysis. And here are our references.